Test. Here we go. Are we recording? We're recording. Hey, what up, Internet? J.O. from Barley Hops and Tabletops. Today, we're diving into a level 1 script of the Geminate. One of the most unique characters, for sure, in this game. Super fun character. Obviously, we have another video on how many losses you can play, which is like 6 to 7 a mission and still survive. Average mission is showing about 13 rounds. It's starting to trend up as we play more and more of these, but you can still get rid of 6 or 7 lost cards and make it the 13 rounds. And if you do it 6 cards, you can get to about 15 or 16, depending on how much damage you take and how well you play it. So there's lots of opportunity to use losses. So when you see us use them here in our level 1 script, don't be surprised. Also, one other thing I should say, though, as far as scripting goes with the Geminate, one of the harder classes to script. I've constantly gone back and forth. I've changed things around because you have so many options. You can start melee, you can start range, the flipping back and forth, you know, what works the best. I really like this script. There's going to be a little bit of an alternative one here at the end. But keep in mind that the script helps more as a Geminate to understand which cards work well together and to just give you a better understanding on taking a complex class and making it a little simpler. There are going to be a lot of times you have to adjust, especially the way that the layout of the scenario is set up and the game state and things like that. However, for the most part, you can stick to it. And if you can get it off, which, you know, you can get it off a normal character, you can get it off 80% of the time, maybe 60, 70% with the Geminate. That is still good enough. So let's dive into it. Let's talk about the Geminate here. So first thing, round 1. I love this opening if you can do it. So on average, within 4 and 5 spaces on any given scenario, there is 2 monsters. So that means that the top of Mind Spike is an incredible first play. Yes, it is a lost card. I understand that. But, you know, you get your poor man stun out there. You're immobilized. You can hit. If there's 2 characters you can hit with this is worth doing. If there's 3, it's absolutely worth doing. I think that there's a lot of advantage to doing this. You get a really fast initiative. You get the immobilize in. You hit those characters 4 and 5 away. Now they're out of it round 1. You do not need to worry about them unless, you know, if they're ranged characters, then it's a different scenario. But most characters are melee. This works really well. It does 1 damage to them. If you can get an infusion potion, you can get 2 damage to them. If you can hit 3 characters with an infusion potion and this Mind Spike, that's 6 damage right off the bat, plus immobilize, so you're going to prevent all these attacks on them. It's an incredible start. It's one of my favorite. I love when I can pull it off. It's not that hard, actually. There's lots of scenarios where you'll be able to pull it off, and it works great. At the end, we'll talk about an alternative build, though, what I do when I can't pull it off, when I see the scenario and I need to change my first move here. Okay, bottom of Scarab Flight. Love this card. Most of the damage you take as a Geminate is in melee mode, so this gives you a shield 2, which is great. You will take some attacks in ranged, and you'll be like, oh man, I only got shield 1 on that, and it kind of feels like a waste, but that's really the card. At the end of the day, this card's generally giving you between 5 and 7 blocks additional in a scenario. That is incredible. It's also a really good way to generate XP for all those people out there that are playing the Geminate and be like, oh my gosh, it is so hard to get experience. This card comboed with Hornbeetle Carapace is like a great way to guarantee that you're going to get solid XP in the mission. Thing about Scarab Flight is you have to get it out early. The Geminate jumps back and forth between melee and range, and as a result of that, tends to take less attacks per scenario than most characters. Our average right now is about 6.5 attacks per scenario. I think it's a little less than that, but it's right around there per character. The Geminate's showing somewhere between like 4.5 and 5.5. So you're not taking as much because of that back and forth jump. Range characters take much less attacks in a scenario than melee characters, so it's important if you're going to use this card to get it out early. That's why I love doing it in round 1. Okay, round 2 then. We go bottom of Selfless Offerings. Pretty quick initiative for the Geminate. Move 3. We're going to switch forms, which is exactly what we want, into my Embrace. Great attack with a switch form. You can pull guys in for your next round for your melee attacks. Solid 3 damage. I just think it's a good all-around card for a level 1. I like going ranged, and then into melee. I find that's really effective in most scenarios with the Geminate. If you go like range and then jump to melee and then back to range, it gets hard to balance all the only range abilities. So I find that it's really good to stick range, go melee, and then I stick in range as long as I can, and you'll see why here in a second. So round 3. Going quick here with Hornet Stingers. I love the bottom. You get disadvantage against you, so now you have disadvantage against you plus your shield 2, which is huge. Reckless Jab is amazing. Absolutely spend the bleed and the poison. Attack 4 and a disarm is huge. You can use your Amulet of Life immediately after to get rid of that wound and that poison instantly, which is totally worth doing off the get-go, especially if you're going to long rest. That kind of plays really well into Reckless Jab, so there is some advantages there, which is huge. So then we move into round 4. I really like using Icebound Quills. I will absolutely spend the Lost card here. It's an attack of 5, Pierce 1, plus you can combo it here with the bottom of Feeding Frenzy, getting additional damage to everybody adjacent to you. And you can loot, which hopefully with that attack 5 you kill somebody. Also gives you an experience point. I know we've already spent 1, 2, 3 losses, and we're going to spend 1 more before our first rest, and trust me, you will be okay. It works out, even though that goes against all... it's very counterintuitive to any Gloomhaven or most Frosthaven characters. All right, then this is where things really heat up for the Geminate, and this is what I love, is you've already been very powerful, and you're about to get more powerful. So, Draining Pincers. Really, we need the bottom move here, 3. Jump's great, but we need it to switch forms because that's what we really want to do. The Horn Beetle Carapace is what we want to get in play. That +2 damage on range gets wildly powerful, which is just, it's really, really cool. So from here on out, you want to stay in range mode as long as you can, and you can get all 4 of these attacks in ranged. It's actually not super hard to do. Which is what you want to do. And generally around here, you're getting 5, 6. You might be planning on opening the next door. You might just be finishing off the last guy, but either way, even if you get delayed, like this card is permanent, it stays in play. You can stay in range mode, you can just do basic actions and just make sure that when you open the next door or the next room, which is generally around this time, you're going to be good to go to just unleash a fury of powerful ranged attacks. So round 6, if you do get in the door, I like this move 2, heal 2. It's really your only heal card. A healing potion is definitely recommended for this character. You don't take a ton damage, and you do have some tankiness too. You're just an interesting mix of like healing and blocks and things like that, which sometimes can come back to haunt you, other times it can't. But this card is so important on the bottom, just that heal 2 self. It usually plays in really well right now at this time, and I like comboing it with Smoldering Hatred. Definitely take the Muddle. That's not the worst condition, and you get 4 attack at range 4 or 5, plus your Hornbeal Curse. This is a 6 attack now. And if you want to take the Curse, that's 2 6 attacks. Yes, you have to move this across twice, but I mean, that's a 12 damage attack. That's insane. Really, really good. So that's very powerful. Also, if you take the Muddle here and you plan on long resting after this, the Muddle will wear off, which is great. And then from there, you're just going to unleash Fury. I mean, I save these 2 cards as my 7th for both Drag Down. Really great card. I love the bottom loss. I definitely tend to use that right after my first rest at some point. Bust into a room and disarm 2 characters. That is amazing. But Drag Down's top is very useful too, especially if you can hit multiple characters with it, and especially if you can hit them on the tail end with the Immobilize and prevent an attack. That's happened often, so it's really great. And then Firefly Swarm is one of your most powerful range cards. That top is just incredible. I love comboing this with an Elemental Potion and the Horn Beetle Carapace, so you could be looking at 4, 5, 6. You're not going to hit all 3 characters. I've never seen a scenario where they're in that pattern, but you're likely to hit 2, and that means you're doing 12 damage with that card too. So between these 2 cards, if you play it right, and it is not that hard to set up, you can get 12 damage on each of them. Yeah, your Horn Beetle Carapace is gone, but that's all right. It did its work, and you got the experience points out of it. So there you go, guys. That is our Geminate script. I hope this helps people, especially if you're feeling like the Geminate's kind of complex or overly difficult to play. I hope this helps kind of tie it in and give you some ideas so you can start building your own script and play around with it and swap cards in and out and see what works and see what doesn't. Right, so if you can't get that top of Mind Spike off in the beginning, this is the alternative that we like to use here. The Firefly Swarm, I like to go really slow, move 4, get myself in a position, hit this Smoldering Hatred. I want to be 4 away if I can, because then that plays into my Embrace here, which is really great. However, that might not always be the case. It's usually pretty easy though with a move 4 to find a scenario where you can get yourself into that position. And if you're starting out with this, it means that the monsters are already very far away, because Mind Spike would not have worked. So you're in good shape. You should be able to get that off. Definitely muddle yourself. Yeah, you'll take it on Into My Embrace on the next round, but that's not really that big of a deal. I don't know if I'd recommend cursing here, though, because you don't have the +2 attack yet. And then bottom of Scarab Flight, as I mentioned before, really powerful card, but you want to get it in early. I had a couple scenarios where I would put it in at the end here, and I wouldn't get the full use out of it. You want to use it. That experience is critical. Also, those shields are just unused shields if you get to the end of the scenario and you don't take enough attacks. So this is a great alternative. This works here. It does lead round 6 into being a recovery round. That's not usually a bad thing. A lot of times people are resting before they want to bust into the next room. You can heal 2 to yourself. You can heal 3 to an ally. It works out pretty good. The one thing I will mention is that if you do this and you're worried about somebody moving here, the boots of speed work really well. This 30 then becomes a 20. I've used that a couple times to kind of, it helps with the Geminate in general. It's just a great thing to have for your ranged attacks, because they're only at certain ranges, and a lot of times you're worried about that guy moving. This is a really good skill, or a really good item to have. That'll help you move your initiative down 10 and hopefully get faster than whoever's moving, so you can make sure you get your attacks off. So give it a go. This is the alternative build. There you go, guys. Let us know what you think in the comments. Geminate level 1 script. Until next time, beat it, nerds.